Alrighty. I tried another setup. Each week I try something completely different and make my life more complicated. So we're going to see if anyone's going to get any notifications today. Hello, Brandon. How are you? Can you hear me? I'm hanging out in front of the tank because you guys like the tank in the background. I see a lot of hellos. Okay, notifications worked. That's a good start. I know you guys like to see the tank up close, but it just never looks good on a live stream. Do we have audio? Favorite coral right now? That's a great question to start with. I don't know. Why do you have to stump me in the first minute? Let me think about it. I mean, I really like the Shadowcaster behind me there, the blue one. And the Drew's Acro is amazing from above. Hi, everyone. You say it looks great. I know it's blurry. I did add another webcam today to see if that would help us, but I don't think it's going to help on filming the tank or showing the tank. So what I can do here is switch to this one, and it'll be handheld. So you can kind of see, and I've got all white light on purpose because of blue and webcams not liking each other. But this thicket right here is looking pretty good. The part way over here on the end, that one is a Seattle Dreamcatcher. Next to it is a Lime in the Sky, which is green with blue centers, or blue core. Then next to that is some kind of basically a brownish acro with purple tips. And then we got the purple Milka coral. Underneath it is a yellow scroll coral. There's Spock. Hey, Spock. Spock's been following me around like a puppy lately. I think she missed me. Skunk clown. Lithophyllon. And down there, that little orange dot is a baby Lithophyllon that I brought home from Seattle. And then over here, a couple chalices, and this is a brand new one that I got. This little, everyone keeps comparing it to a jack-o'-lantern, but someone today called it, what did they call it? It'll come to me. We'll come back to that. And then we've got a chalice and a scrolling Pavona. There's the Drew's Acro, the Shadowcaster, the anemone you guys all know so well with all of its skunks, some hammer coral, some gorgonian. Everyone always asks me about this gorgonian. Oh look, there's a big white spot in that acro down there, in that Monty. I need to find out what's going on. Well, today's water test Saturday, so I'll test the water and see what's going on. Sounds like my alkalinity got a little bit low, so we'll have to find out. But that is the view of the reef as of today. And obviously I need to do some maintenance. I've been traveling a lot lately. It's been really rough and exhausting. So today we're going to talk about these things for a minute. Let me switch back. So Elos came out with this food last Maxima. And there's 3 different cans. It reminds me of cat food, right? It's got the little pop top, and then it's got the part that pops open. And inside, this one is a type of bloodworms. And I'm always using bloodworms, so that's great. I believe this is good for about 8 days after it's been opened. It's going to be just like cat food to where you have to refrigerate it after opening and use it up. So this one weighs 100 grams, and I'm going to have to work fast. So I'm not going to open all the cans at the same time, but that's the bloodworms. Then this one is Cyclops. Give you that. So these should be very tiny. Farm-raised Cyclops, it says. And then the third one are shrimps. And it says they are Artemisia salina. Whole brine shrimp. Huh. Brine shrimp in a can. That's a new one. I mean, I've bought brine shrimp eggs in a can before and then hatched my own. And I'm kind of tempted to do just that, to start growing them again, to throw them in the reef. But, yeah, the reef's done well without it, so do I really want to do that? On the bottom is an expiration date, so it lets you know this one's good till 11/9 of 22. So it'll definitely be gone by then. To catch you guys up, I flew to Seattle for Reef Works, and then after arriving, I filmed a tank while I was there. You guys are going to see that in the near future from Todd Luckman, and his reef is really pretty, and he built the tank and the stand, and he made his own lights at one point. That's a really cool setup. We did the event itself, and then Sunday, we kind of hung out in downtown Seattle and had some fun as a group. And then I was supposed to fly home at 5 o'clock, and that did not play out at all. And I ended up, I mean, the airline didn't know what to do with me. They said that my ticket had been voided, which they said was unusual, which I agree is unusual. I've never heard of that. And neither had the person that was helping me. So instead, they bumped me to a midnight flight to a different airport. So when I finally landed here in Texas, I had to take an Uber to the other airport to get my car. And then needless to say, after all that, I was wiped out, and I got a few hours sleep, worked for a couple hours, and then took another flight straight to Florida, where I spoke at the club meeting in FMAS, which was in Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. And I also filmed a tank while I was there too, Matt Dudley's tank, which maybe you've seen on Reef to Reef or on Facebook. And it's a really pretty tank, and he gives us a behind-the-scenes tour of that tank, which I think will be interesting. And then we went out to dinner really quick, and I got like 2.5, maybe 3 hours sleep, and I had to rush to the airport again to fly home. So I have been feeling wiped out ever since, and I've been taking emergency like crazy, trying to avoid catching anything, because I went from freezing weather to hot weather back to Texas, where today it's misting. We're dealing with 39-degree weather and foggy and light drizzle. It's been quite the week. And then I've been trying to work since I got home, which has been hard. And I have to work quickly because I'm leaving again for a trip to Atlanta for a special project. And then I'm back for a few days, and then I'm flying for an 8-day dive trip to Bonaire. And I'm going to be talking about that soon, especially inside the Club Milo's Reef area. And so if you are not on Club Milo's Reef on Facebook, you are definitely invited. And here is the link to get there. But I was hoping to hear back from Coral Restoration Foundation about a project. So we'll see what they say, and if they don't, I might have to make an international long-distance call to talk to someone. And that'll be a really nice trip for me. As a scuba diver, I don't get to do it nearly as much as I'd like, and this trip kind of fell in my lap, and I impulsively said, yes, I'll go. So I'll be gone for 8 days. So there will be a couple of live streams missing during March, because I'll be gone on 2 Saturdays in a row. I do want to talk about something that has really surprised me. I'm going to take this off the screen. You don't need it there. So I discussed Live Rock Enhance before. I'm going to put that right there and switch cameras and throw it on the screen and move this closer. Okay. So Live Rock Enhance is from Reef Bright, and that's the same people that do my lights, and they do lots of different things. And see, doesn't want to stay in focus. Come on. Behave. Nope. All right, well, you guys saw the jar for a second there. And one jar is supposed to treat something like 2,000 gallons. I used it in my frag system 4 times in less than 2 weeks. And the idea is that it's going to really clean your rock, which is crazy. You're just sprinkling in this powder, and your fish will eat it. It doesn't hurt them. It's basically a bacteria. It's a bunch of bacteria and enzymes and stuff. And you put that in, and your water will get cloudy for a few hours, like everything else I tell you to pour in your tank. But that's because it's a small bacterial bloom. So if you're planning to take pictures of your tank, don't put this in. But if you are just wanting to do some maintenance on your tank and you want to make the rockwork look prettier, man, this stuff works. I am so impressed with it that I ordered a bunch of jars for the shop. I am going to sell it. The jars are $20 each. If you want to give it a shot in your tank, whether it's a new tank or if it's an old tank, I'm really recommending it for old tanks, for people that have had a reef for a long time, to kind of clear up that rock that's been sitting there full of crap for years. Because I used it in my reef too, 2 times. And the rock already looks cleaner. And I know that's really a vague thing, and I'm telling you, I know there's going to be people out there that say, oh, snake oil, or it's a scam or whatever, but nope. I actually believe this one's the real deal. I did film my tank being dosed, and I'm going to share that as a separate video at some point. But I'm very impressed with this stuff, and I didn't know what to think. I was like, all right, I'll give it a try. But I trusted Tulio, and I wanted to see what he had what he had going, and he recommended this stuff to me. He says, give it a shot, Mark. So I did. Now, what is the point of putting it in your tank? And he's been suggesting that people with new tanks set it up to kind of get the rocks established a little more quickly. So if anyone buys this and ends up trying it in their new tank, I would love to hear your feedback. I want to know your personal experience. If you're brand new to the hobby, I don't know how much in-depth analysis you could possibly provide because you have this little experience. But if you've been in the hobby a while and you're setting up a new tank, or you recently set up a new tank in the last few months, and you're wanting to give it a shot to see if it gives a boost to your system, I would love to hear from you. So that stuff's arriving later this week. I'll stick it in the shop. You guys can buy it. You can try it out and see what you think. So far, I've used it several times, and the rock work in my frag system is amazing. Now, here's a cool side effect. I mentioned this in a previous stream a few weeks ago, that I was using it to get rid of cyanobacteria just because I thought, why not? Let's see if it'll eat it, because it's bacteria fighting bacteria. And it's all gone, and I didn't do anything. I didn't change any water in that tank. I've just been running my skimmer. I haven't touched my refugium. It's full of plants. I've still been throwing in food every single day. I didn't turn off my lights. All I did was put the scoops in there, 2 scoops, because that tank was a 60-gallon. And I just let it rain into the water, which you'll see in the video. And then a couple days later, I did it again. A couple days later, I did it again. A couple days. I mean, I didn't do any work. And my rock work looks immensely better. And I do have it on my phone. Let's see if this software will pick up yet again one more camera. I don't know if I can do this or not. Give me a second here. Share screen, share video file. I don't think that's going to work. Well, you guys will just have to wait for it. But in the meantime, maybe I can do this. Let me airdrop this to my computer really quick, perhaps. If it wants. If it doesn't want, oh, of course not. That'd be too easy. Let me text it to myself. Send. Okay, so I'm just going to show you one rock. Okay, I know that's not much of a test, but... And the text came here. Can you buy it anywhere here? I don't know where here is. Let's see, Mark. So I'll switch this now to desktop. And here is, I guess you guys can see that. That is one rock, and it's half covered in coralline. And it was already growing some coralline, but it's so much richer, and the rock looks clean. It looks like the algae can continue to spread across it. It's very impressive. Let's see if I have another picture I can share with you guys. I don't know. Here is, okay, I'll show you this one too. And that way you can see Aptasia and stuff to see I'm not just building up your anticipation for nothing. Okay, send. Guys, you're gonna see my desktop here in a second. It didn't work. Let's try this. So here's another rock, and there's some leathers in the background. The lights were off on the tank. This is just ambient lighting. So there's no lighting to mess with this color. I mean, the lights weren't even on. And you can see how the purple is even covering my substrate, which, I mean, that's great. If you're trying to grow some kind of coralline and you already have a little bit in your system, then adding this product to your tank will really kickstart it. I mean, it's not like there's something in there like calcium or something, but man, I'm so impressed with it. So I'm telling you guys about it, so that way you've had some heads up. Andrew says he'd like to give it a shot. He's run this tank for 6 months. So here's a crazy thought. Nothing is being promised here. But what if this product is the solution to dinoflagellates? What if putting this stuff in will make that stuff die? You know, in other words, it will consume the dinos. How awesome would that be? I don't have any, I can't test it. But I killed cyano with it without doing any work. And I just can't emphasize that enough. And I know you guys, you want me to be quick and to the point and I ramble, but I'm just being honest with you. This was my experience. I saw like the red patch growing on top of my substrate and I was like, great. Now I've got to, treat with red cyano RX, and then I got to do a big water change. I got to clean my skimmer. Instead I just put the stuff in there and boom, within 2 weeks I've completely solved the problem and the tank looks great from end to end. And my reef, like I said, I put it in twice, and my tank sitter sent me a text while I was in Seattle and said, I wanted to mention, your tank looks amazing. It is crystal clear and everything looks so good. And that was completely out of the blue. He just had to send me a message. And I'm going to blame Live Rock Enhance for that. So, okay, that's my sales pitch for that one. And yes, I'm making a few dollars off the sales, but I sell things on my website. This is what I do for a living, and so that's why I keep telling you to shop at melovesreef.com and support the hobby and feed Spock, because Spock likes to be fed. She's been with me a long time. All right. So I want to answer some of your questions today. I need to open up something really quick on my desktop for my moderators. They're supposed to be capturing questions and answers for me, hopefully. I didn't actually ask them to do it this time. So I'm going to go to Google Docs. And recent docs. Look at that. It's empty. They have not started yet. Well, yes, someone did. Someone did. Favorite coral right now. So I already answered that one. I saw someone asking about biopellets and how long should you soak them. And so we definitely do want to soak our biopellets. And that is something that when you first open the container and you put everything inside the inside a bowl and you pour tank water on top, let it soak for 24 hours and then install it into your reactor and get it running on your system. You'll also want to add some bacteria to your tank with your biopellets at least a couple of times a week. It's not just a reactor full of bouncing beads that works the magic. It's going to need some bacteria to work with. The moderators are looking for your questions now. So in the meantime, feel free to ask me some questions, and I will try to get back to you. Let's see. Okay, one person asked, would you use the same sand when moving a tank? Yes. Matter of fact, I'm the king of reusing sand just because there's nothing wrong with sand. Sand is sand. It lasts forever, and it can just be rinsed with water. Tap water is totally fine. And I've got a video about it on this channel. So you can just Google that, and it'll take you, or just search my channel. If you can't search my channel, then just search YouTube and type rinsing or washing sand Melev or Melev's Reef, and it'll get you to my video. Real easy to wash out. One of the suggestions that people have asked is that, or suggestions that was made was pour your sand in a pillowcase and then blast it with water and all the crap will flush out and the sand will stay in the bag. I haven't tried that one. I've always used a bucket. So rinsing the sand completely clean of everything and then just pouring off the water so it's just damp sand, throw it in your new tank, get going. Not a problem. Adam asks, did you let your chalices, or you're letting your chalices grow on the sand? Yes, I do. I just put them down there. There's some growing on the overflow over there. There's this one here is a chalice growing up this rock. And this is a smaller piece that decided to spread out. But I have no problem with chalices down on the sand. I think they look good down there. And as they spread, they create their own calcified base. And if you were a fragging person, it'd be easy to snap a piece off versus trying to peel it off of a rock. Now, I'm not a fragging person, so I just let it grow bigger and bigger until it hits somebody else, and then we see who wins. What do I do for maintenance? Well, I clean the glass. I'm a huge advocate for cleaning the glass. I clean the skimmer. I clean the skimmer twice a year. I clean the cup every couple of weeks because I have a auto cleaner. When I didn't have a cleaner, I have the skimmer Swabby on my protein skimmer. When I didn't have that, I would just take the cup off every single day, dump it out, rinse it, clean the neck, and put it back on for maximum efficiency. And if you just leave it sitting running and don't clean that neck, even if you have the liquid draining out, but the neck is getting all gunked up, your skimmer is going to work less efficiently. So let's just say it affects the skimmer by 10% only, like it's 90% efficient. You spend all this money on a protein skimmer. You want it to make your water clean. You're trying to have good water parameters. Do you really want something running at 90% efficiency? It's just like your power heads. You've got power heads in your tank. You read all about it. You did your research. You said, I'm getting 3,000 gallons an hour. And then you let it get crudted up with all kinds of algae and garbage. And it's not working nearly as efficiently as it did at first. And you eventually clean it. And then all of a sudden you have all this flow. Don't put off on those things. Stay on top of those situations and fix them or clean them regularly. Do your maintenance. My friend Tammy just recently asked about doing, or was making a comment last night in Club Milo's Reef about how she had not cleaned her Vectra M1 in some time and it was stalling, and she took it apart and cleaned it. Now she's buying a backup pump so she doesn't leave herself in that situation again. And she told everyone, make sure you're remembering to do your maintenance. And she's 100% right. These pumps need to be taken offline and cleaned periodically so that everything is working at best efficiency, and that way you can catch things early on before they break. That's about it for maintenance. I do my water tests every week. That's why I said I got to do my test today, because today's water test Saturday. And then I'll get all my parameters and I'll enter them in Reef Trace, which is the app that I'm a partner in. And it lets me see how my alkalinity, my calcium, my magnesium has been doing. And feed every single day. I don't think that's maintenance. Top off, I don't even think about because it's all automated. I have a RODI system that's sending water right now into my top off reservoir down here. And it is about 5 inches from full, and then it's going to fill up the other reservoir under the frag tank. And then I'll turn off the RO unit for a week. And that's it for that. All right. How did my anemone react with a live rock enhance? The anemone didn't care at all. It looked a little bit, well, I'm going to say, I don't know if it cared. It shriveled up a little tiny bit, but it didn't shrink down. The only coral that physically made a change during the actual dose was the leather coral. And I think because all that stuff blowing around in the water tickled it, and so the coral retracted all of its polyps, but then it re-extended them again. So that was the only thing I saw. And the anemone cube, I didn't see any change at all. And I put it directly in that tank just to see if anything would happen, and nothing specific occurred in that tank. It looked cloudy at first, and then it looked crystal clear. And there was a little patch of cyano down there that is essentially gone as well. And this tank only got done twice compared to the other one. Virginia says, can I get the live rock enhance when I'm at Aquashella? Well, I'm not doing a booth. I'll be there for the show. I'm also speaking at the show. But if you remind me, I can bring it. Otherwise, you're just going to have to hope someone has it there at the show that you can purchase it. Do I ship my sumps to the UK, Kev asks. No. They're just too big, heavy, and fragile to make that trip, and it would be super expensive. Now, if money is no object and you said, look, I don't care, I want it, I'll do it. And I'll box it up the best I can, and we'll ship it with insurance, and we can hope for the best. But I haven't done that one. I've shipped one sump to Germany, and that one went in a container ship, where all of his aquarium supplies went to a container in Florida, and then it traveled. I never heard from him again. He might still be using it to this day. Reef God asked, do bubble tip anemones like high flow or low flow? It's up for debate. I think what most people want to know is how do you keep the bubbles on the bubble tip? And I did a video about these creatures a few years ago, and to this day there's still people debating under there. Less light, more flow, less food, more food. It's everything. No one's got the answer to that one. And so I have one MP40 in that tank, and it goes through 5 different speeds throughout the day and night. And I feed that tank with an auto feeder once a day. I feed it with frozen food every night. And I have a lot of anemones in there. So if someone is in my area wants some anemones, they should definitely let me know, because I'm sick of them. I mean, literally, there's like a row of them on the top rim right now of the small ones, the small little green BTAs. Super pretty anemones. I have way too many. And it was like they're all waiting for me to scoop them out and give them to someone, and I just want them out. All right, let me pull this down so I can read it. Not a fake account, asks. All right. Actually, your question is, getting into the hobby, what about the price? What's the most cost-effective way of setting up a tank? And I actually did an entire video about this 2 weeks ago. It's about an hour long, and you should just watch that whole thing. I'm going to answer your question with the go to my video answer, but I can tell you this. If you just want my opinion and you want to set up with good gear, you're looking at $47 a gallon. And if you can do it for less, that's great. And some people have, and that's fine. And I'm not debating it. It's not even a debate. It's just what I believe to be the true cost of setting up a saltwater reef tank. It's going to be about $47 a gallon. So if you're going to set up a 100-gallon tank, you're looking at $4,700 from beginning to end before you add the livestock. And yes, it can be done for less. Buy used stuff. John asks, acrylic or glass? And then why did you choose what you did? I am a huge Starfire glass chooser. All my tanks have been Starfire since 2004. And I prefer it because the clarity is the same as acrylic, but it's a little bit less likely to scratch compared to acrylic. If you want to use acrylic, the taller your tank becomes, or you order it, the taller you choose, the thicker the wall of the acrylic must be. So I'm part of a project right now that has a 2,000-gallon aquarium made of acrylic, and it's 2¼ inches thick. So imagine just looking to buy a cleaning magnet for that, or attaching any kind of pump to the walls. You can't. There are tanks that are set up. These dream tanks, when they set them up, they'll hollow out an area just to slide the Vortec motor in, or to be able to affix a gyre magnet to, or they have to get supersized magnets, or they have to bond it somehow to the tank itself permanently. So, or they just use closed loops because you can't connect anything to it because the walls are so thick. The downside of acrylic is that it's just so easy to scratch. And actually, both tanks you're going to see in the 2 videos I just filmed in the last week were both acrylic tanks. And both of them had scratches, and both of them were trying to solve those problems by sanding gently and working their way through the tank. And it is just no fun. My general rule is use Starfire glass and never use metal on it. And I say don't use metal, and I almost never do. Once a month I go through my tank with a brand new razor blade. As soon as I'm done, I throw the blade away. So I highly recommend using credit cards or hotel key cards or gift cards to scrape your tank clean, or the magic eraser from Mr. Clean, the original one. Don't get the ones that have soaps in them. Alrighty. I'm out of questions. I need more questions. Michael says, how much more difficult is it to keep bubble tip anemones compared to soft corals? Well, a soft coral tends to stay where you put it, where an anemone can go anywhere in your tank. And it can wander into a power head. It can go rub up against other corals you care about. They really are little bags of water that cause chaos in your tank, where a soft coral tends to just move in the flow and get larger. It can self-frag, or you can frag it to make more of it. But essentially, we're looking to, I think that would be the safer choice. And let me show you. So I'll switch cameras here for a second. And this is not going to look good. I'm warning you guys in advance. So we've got this anemone right here. Let's see if I can hold this right. And you'll see all this death right here down the side. That's where the anemone touched and killed. And then over on this side, you can see the side of the hammer is kind of trying to hold its own against the anemone tentacles. And then up here, the acro is dead because of the anemone tentacles. And then in the back, the acro is dead because of the anemone tentacles. So if you don't mind having a zone of death all the way around your anemone, then you can enjoy it. But if you just want to have some soft corals like some button polyps, or you want to have leathers or something like that, they're going to tend to stay where you want them. I don't have a lot of those on this side of the tank. They're more in the back. Like these are soft corals. Zoanthids are soft corals. But these are LPS. Those are Duncan corals, and that's a pagoda. And Crown Royal's in the way. Get out of the way. So, yeah, that's the answer to that. Let me switch cameras here again to this. Have a sip of my coffee. Let's see. I see there's been a lot of stuff that I did not know had happened in the chat. Someone asked about a skimmer running without the cup. I don't know why they asked that. LJ asked me if I've lost any acros lately. Well, I came home with a bunch of frags. Not step on the cord. I came home with a bunch of frags, and of all the frags, 2 went up in smoke basically by the following night. And they're down there. I left them in the tank, but they're gone. I call them Arctic corals because they're bone white. And yeah, but for the most part, everything's doing well. I had a light bulb that was out over my tank, and I fixed that last night. So now it is solved, and I'm happy about that. The the light went out last week, and I was out of bulbs, so I just used I used a backup bulb, an old bulb that wasn't working quite so well, and it just completely cut out and stopped working. And I checked my temperature of my tank because metal halides give off heat. And it was funny, the past 3 days, my tank didn't get nearly as hot for those 3 days that 1 light out of 3 wasn't on. Isn't that interesting? So I was able to get that light fixed, and today the temperature swings will be back to their normal spikes. Jonathan, I've never talked about bounce mushrooms because I don't have any experience with them whatsoever. I've never bought one. I've looked at them. I think the price is crazy, and I just kind of enjoy it, take a picture, and leave. I did buy a bunch of rock anemones, and they're right now in the frag tank. I want to put them in the anemone cube. And I know exactly where I want to put them, but I don't know if they're going to stay there. And the reason I want them in the anemone cube is because they're little anemones. They're really pretty. I bought 7. And right now they're in a little Rubbermaid container, and I want to put them in that tank over there. I think they'd be really pretty on the substrate. Have I ever had any Moorish idols? No, I've never done that. It's one of those fish that I've already been told that's a difficult fish, and so I don't give it any thought. And I basically just say, no, can't have it, and I just don't get it. I saw someone recently got one, and they posted about it. I'm trying to remember. Oh, it was somebody in Florida, and it's a really pretty fish. As a matter of fact, I think another friend bought one too. And yeah, I mean, more power to you. That's not an easy fish to keep long term, and so that's why I don't choose to buy it. Let's see. Vamps asks, would a custom sump be worthwhile for a Red Sea reefer to add a refugium? You can, and it can be built. We're dealing with how many inches of space you have to work with. And so if you know the size protein skimmer you're going to use and you've got something in mind, you can let me know, and I can give you a quote. Is the no-pox working for me? I didn't touch it yet because, as I told you guys, I wasn't going to use anything new on my tank while I was out of town. Now I'm back in town for just under 2 weeks. I can actually set that up and get it started. But how much can it possibly do in 2 weeks? I'm expecting it to do nothing at first because I'm going to run it at 50% of its recommended strength. And so that's going to be more like setting the foundation for it. And then well, and then I'll be gone for 8 days. That's a long time. I don't know. I might drag my feet on that one just because that is definitely going to affect a change on the tank. Is there a specific day and time where you test your water? Do you worry about being consistent? Well, I love Saturdays. I always say Saturdays. And ideally, I'd like to do it before the live stream so I can already tell you my numbers, but that doesn't seem to happen because I just start my day too late. So I try to catch it Saturday afternoon. But if you are testing consistently every Saturday at, let's say, 3 o'clock, if that's your time, that's really ideal because that's going to give you the same temperature measurements week to week to week. That'll give you about the same pH measurement week to week to week. So that would be good. Alkaline, calcium, magnesium, phosphate, nitrate, they don't really care about the time of day necessarily when it comes to testing. Did you ever find out if Venery Food helps keep your glass cleaner? Absolutely found out. It definitely does. It's amazing. I even teased them on their Facebook page because I said I needed to clean my glass, so I threw some of the food in my tank instead. And yeah, no, it actually does. It's amazing. And it's a product you only use like 2 times a week. I have that one in stock if you want to try it out. It's on my website. And it comes in 3 different sizes, but I mostly bought the small ones because I felt people were going to want to try it rather than commit to a larger jar. but I will be adding the larger sizes to my website later in case anyone is so inclined to go that route. What do you think about the filter roller? I haven't used mine yet. I'm a busy guy. Highlander says his tank's been running for 6 months and he can't keep his nitrates and phosphates down. What can you do? Well, I need to know what your numbers are before I can give you that answer. Because what is high? I mean, mine are high. I can tell you I use phosphate RX to lower my phosphates. What is the best way and effective way to deal with dinoflagellates? I don't have the solid, specific, guaranteed answer for you. That's why I don't talk about it. Do I run a refugium or do I, with your biopellets? I did in the past. I haven't run biopellets in a couple of years. I always run a refugium on all my tanks. And if anyone is doing the Triton method, that company is a huge, or that process is a huge proponent of refugiums, large refugiums. And I just feel like refugiums benefit the tank to the point where I won't run a tank without a refugium. Adam asks, do you think it's unethical to keep a tang in a 55-gallon while it's small? No. It's a small fish. You should see the cubby holes it's in at the wholesaler. They're in a little tiny box this big where they can scoop them out with a net. And I know that's not long term, but I've had Dory in my anemone cube for a couple of years. I got her, she was about that big. She's ready to move, and I guess I'm going to put her in my reef. I don't really want to because I know what hippo tangs can do to zoanthids, but at the same time, I kind of want to see that blue fish swimming in the big tank. So I'm thinking in the very near future, you're going to see some new fish in my reef from the other tanks. I've got a coral beauty, a 6-line wrasse, the blue hippo. I've got a cleaner shrimp. All of those fish and invertebrates could go into the big tank. And there's I discovered something interesting recently. I posted about it on Facebook, but in case you don't follow me there. The frag tank has never done well for frags. It's been very odd. And I've blamed everything under the sun for why the frags didn't do well. I felt like the lights weren't good enough. I felt like my water quality wasn't good enough. I felt like my flow could have been better. It was a lack of water changes. There was pests. There was algae. I mean, it was all these problems. And a couple of weeks ago, I did the video where I showed pegging. And I took 2 pieces of shadow caster and put them in that frag tank. And I thought, I'll guinea pig them and see what they do. And they were okay for like a day, maybe a day and a half. And then as I watched, they just start dying. And they were dying like from every angle, which made me start thinking that doesn't look like a water parameter problem. That looks more like a fish is eating me problem. So I watched those corals go away and I thought, all right, whatever. But I didn't really give it a lot of thought. I kind of was wondering if maybe the coral beauty was the culprit. What I ended up finding out was I brought home these new corals from Florida, put them in the frag tank, and I went to check on them because I saw the 2 going up in smoke. And while I was watching, I have these 2 very fat damsels. I don't know what kind they are. I adopted them because otherwise it would have been murdered. And so I said, all right, I'll take them. We'll throw them in the frag tank. Well, guess what? They eat SPS corals. That explains why for the last 3 years I've been unsuccessful with any kind of SPS coral in that tank. I can have anemones in there, leathers in there. I've had zoanthids in there, tons of mahanos. Everything's been doing just fine in there, but when I try to put in anything that matters, they don't do well. So I figured it out. It's those 2 damsels, so they got to go, which is the other reason I'm going to go through that tank and pull all the rock out, catch the few fish that are in there, rearrange the rock a little bit, maybe siphon the substrate because it's 3 years old, do a water change, and put some frags in there, and they'll be awesome to actually have some ready to go when people come by. Shallow Reef. Are you Shallow Reef from Switzerland? Because I saw that name on Instagram. Let me know if you are. Make sure you hit me in the comments here. Trying to keep an acrylic tank clean near the substrate is very difficult. And you're going to want to be very cautious with how you approach that area. I know that the tiny seraph snails will eat that area, that bottom inch, right above the sand, so that's convenient. But scraping it, I would be using a credit card. And since your tank is shallow, you should be able to reach it without too much trouble. I would never go sideways. I would go up and down to avoid dragging the sand across the acrylic. But that is going to be a challenging area, and you're going to have to work very hard there. Okay, great. I actually teased you on Instagram asking you for shallow reef, how shallow is this tank exactly? Are you measuring it in millimeters? Because, Switzerland, metric system, made sense. But, you know, I'd love to know how tall your tank really is. Yeah, well, someone said damsels are so hard to catch. I'm going to take all the rock out of that tank. It's going to take 10 minutes. I'm just going to take it all out, get them out, put the rock back. Boom, done. There won't be any cycle or any kind of problems. All right, let me see what else I've been missing here. What is the best way of adding larger grain sand to my system to stop it from being blown around by my wave pumps? Stop the flow in the tank, create an open area in your tank, and pour in the sand right in that open area, and then spread it out equally, and then restart your pumps. That's how you do it. And I would only add enough sand to cover a ½ inch of new. I wouldn't try and bury your sand with a big, huge layer because all the live sand will die being smothered under the new sand. And there's a good chance that your heavier sand is going to migrate down and the finer sand is going to come up. That's just part of reef keeping. But I use a larger grade sand. It's about 3 millimeters in size. It's called Reef Flakes, and it's from Tropic Eden. Premium Aquatics sells it. And my Vortex used to move it like crazy. They don't do it as much. I used to have a hole down here all the time. Drove me crazy. What are your thoughts on running Miracle Mud through a reactor instead of placing it in the sump? Wow, I have never heard of that idea. I'm going to say that's a terrible idea. If you ever use Miracle Mud at all, it muddies the water just during the installation process. And having water flowing through it or trying to get... I don't even know if you can move water through Miracle Mud. It's just so dense. I don't think that's going to work in a reactor at all. I'm not going to recommend that. Matt Dudley's tank, he is a Miracle Mud guy. But he's also got some other stuff going on the side. And it's so... I don't see a lot of Miracle Mud users out there with beautiful reef tanks. It makes me think, wow, okay, it's a miracle. I like that stuff. I've just never seen that. I've seen a couple of pretty tanks with Miracle Mud, and I've seen a lot of tanks that didn't use any at all. So I'm not a proponent of that product. And then the thing with Miracle Mud, it's very expensive, and you have to replace a third of it like every 6 or 9 months. So you're constantly replacing with new to replenish. And so I don't see the need. I've been thinking about putting a Goniopora in my 50-gallon. Have you had any experience with this coral? Well, Nick, I have done Goniopora in the past, and it's a coral that needs to be fed. And depending on the color of the species, some are hardier than others, but there's foods on the market that are so much better these days than what we had in the past that you may have a successful long-term relationship with that coral. In the past, we'd buy Goniopora, and I'm talking about 10, 15 years ago, especially 15 years ago. You'd buy these corals, and they were doomed. They were doomed to die. So I don't really recommend that coral to most people. I don't have one in my tank right now. I had one years ago, and I tried a little frag that withered away because I wasn't giving it enough food and attention. But nowadays, if you're using Venery a couple times a week, that broadcast feeding, that might be enough. Matter of fact, last night, I was looking at the back of my tank for my Dendrophilia, which I have two polyps, completely missing. So I need to locate them today because they are in a spot in my tank where I can't feed them directly, and so I was thinking I probably should move them somewhere better where I can get to them with some food, or I need to make sure they're getting hit with that broadcast food. And I noticed they're gone, which means they fell. So I've got to go locate them and get them in a new spot. Bart asks, when is... a good time to fill the refugium with Chaetomorpha? I would say if you're starting a new tank, you're going to want to wait at least 3 months, let the tank get established, get it through its cycle, add some livestock, and then maybe then add the Chaetomorpha. Any sooner, and it's probably just going to wither away and die because there's a lack of nutrients in the tank. It just can't support itself. It's going to need some regular food coming out of the water column itself. It's a plant. It needs the nutrients. Have you ever thought about running a tank without any water changes? Crazy Muncher asks me. Crazy, I have not done a water change in 18 months on this tank. So, asked and answered. My spider sponge is dying slowly. Yep, that's not surprising. That is not a long-term coral for our tanks. It's a filter feeder. It needs a lot of food. It would do a lot better in an NPS tank, which is a non-photosynthetic tank. That means a tank that has no light. It might have a little bit of dim lighting, but it does not have reef lights. And that is a tank that is fed all the time. The water tends to be green because it's loaded with phytoplankton, and that is how you keep that sponge alive. That is a beautiful sponge that comes from Australia, as far as I know. And I should quit messing with this cord. I'm probably making it click and crackle. I apologize. You definitely do want to make sure that coral is being fed a lot regularly. I mean, it eats all the time. And in our tanks, our water is a little too clean to keep that sponge alive long term. Highlanders was saying my phosphate's at 0.15 and my nitrate's at 20. Those numbers are fine. I mean, yes, they can be lower, but they're fine. My tank is like 50 nitrates right now. My phosphate varies from 0.1 to 0.75, depending on what time of the month I'm measuring. How can I get rid of hair algae under these conditions? Get a bigger cleanup crew. I am constantly asking people when they say they have an algae problem, tell me about your cleanup crew. That is my first question. I never say, what's your nitrate, what's your phosphate, how old are your bulbs? I say, tell me about your cleanup crew. I recommend 1 critter per gallon. If you got a 50-gallon tank, you need 50 critters working on algae. And you may need to reach in there and rip things out manually yourself to assist them. You become the cleanup crew also, and then they'll get what you didn't get. You know, they'll get what's left behind. One of our moderators just said he had to leave to go get a generator because his power ran out. So Eric is in an area up in Canada where they've gotten some crazy number, like 142 inches of snow over the last month or so. It's insane. Kayla asked, what are your thoughts on the Melanurus wrasse? It's a beautiful fish. I had one in this tank for several years. One day it just died for no reason whatsoever. It was kind of surprising. I don't know their long-term lifespan, but they tend to be very friendly. I had one that not only did it enjoy this reef, but it would like to swim and rest on top of the hammer coral, and I did a little video of it because I knew no one would believe me. So that was pretty fun. R&R asks, thoughts on black sand? Well, black sand is almost never sand. It's actually glass or silica based. And so it's great at a trade show, at a frag swap and a frag tank because all the corals pop against it, just like diamonds pop against black velvet. But as the sand gets dirty and detritus gets in it, it just starts looking salt and pepper. And there's no, okay, so it doesn't look clean all the time. It doesn't reflect light, so it doesn't help give your corals light from bouncing off the sand and coming back up. And it doesn't help with calcium because it can't buffer. So it's not really a good choice for a reef tank. All right. How old is my Gorgonian? I'm seeing some of these questions here. Hey, thanks for liking my shirt. This is a clown car, and it's super cute, and I got it from a vendor who's no longer in business, which is always frustrating. That was one of the things, when I put the shirt on today, I was thinking to myself, it's funny how if you stay in this hobby long term, you're going to have mementos of businesses long gone because people come and people go, and you just keep maintaining your tank. And you'll have skimmers from companies that don't exist. You'll have lights from companies that don't exist. You'll have shirts that they finally stopped. This company actually, he didn't want to necessarily stop. He was happy with his business. But the company that physically made the shirts said we're closing our doors. And so that was the end of that. So I was kind of sad. How old is your Gorgonian, Dylan asks. I've had this one in my tank for 6, maybe 7 years. I had a piece about this large. It was 3 little fingers. Brought it home from the Long Island Aquarium in New York. And it came from Joe Aiello's tank. Beautiful coral and super easy. I don't have to do anything but just let it do its thing. And I've fragged it a few times for a few people. I've probably cut off, I don't know, 4 or 5 frags. But I tend to just leave it alone and let it grow. Its nickname is the Tracy Morgan Gorgonian. I see someone's admitting their sins here. Let's see. Zach, no, William said he has 3 snails and 2 crabs in his 55-gallon aquarium. So you need 47 more things. Someone asked me how deep my sand bed was, I think. I think I saw that scroll by. And it started at 4 inches, It's migrated. Some of the sand is under the rockwork because of the cucumbers and possibly the flow. And possibly some of it has been consumed by the reef and needs to be replenished. I would be fine buying a few bags of live sand and replenishing to bring this up a little bit in the front. I'd actually like to do that just because I like it to be a little bit more smooth. But my sand bed kind of does this across the front of the tank, which is very natural looking. Am I speaking at Maxima this year? I have not been invited to speak. They may suddenly tell me they'd like me to, but I've spoken the last couple of years, and typically Maxima likes to have a lot of fresh faces and not recycle the same guys over and over. That being said, I've got a really cool project I'm working on right now that nobody knows about. It's top secret, and it would be a great Maxima presentation. So, you know, if they end up saying they'd like me to come out, I would definitely be doing a new talk, which would be nice. Speaking of talks, last weekend I did an aquascaping demonstration with Dwayne Ostreich, and it was a lot of fun. We spoke to a group of, I don't know, 40, 50 people, and it went really well. And that same presentation will be given at Aquashella the end of this month. So if you're coming to Aquashella, it's Saturday morning, I believe. So you'll definitely want to come hear that. And then I've got a couple more trips coming up. I've got a trip going to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've got one to Minnesota. I've got one to Twin Cities. I know it sounds like the same thing, but it's another club in Twin Cities. And so there are different talks coming up that are happening across the nation. If you're in those general areas, I'll be posting the information, and that way you'll know what's going on, and you can maybe make plans accordingly to attend. Adam asks, are you coming to RAP New York? I'm not going to have time for that one with everything going on in my life right now. There's just no way. I just don't see it happening. It would be really awesome to be able to go, but I don't know. Someone asked me, how old is the powder blue tang? I don't have a powder blue tang. I have a Nassau tang, I have a purple tang, a couple yellow tangs, a coal tang, the hippo. I think that's all of them. So, have you used fluconazole to fight algae? No, I've never needed to. My tanks have not had those kind of algae problems that others have encountered, probably because of the refugium I maintain and the cleanup crew I recommend. Majoof asks, I think I said that name right, how big is your cleanup crew? Well, about a month and a half ago, I added basically about 500 critters to all my tanks. So I'm a big proponent of having a lot of critters in your tank. That being said, I did a bad job acclimating and lost quite a few, and I'm ready to buy some more just because I kind of screwed that up, and it's completely my fault. Don't commit to a lot of things when you're crazy busy. R&R asks, do you do custom acrylic work for customers? That is my main source of income, yes. I'm trying to read this one. I don't know what it says. Neil, I don't know what that is. I think there's some typos in there or something, but you're asking about some kind of sand from Seachem. Will it help with calcium? I don't know. And then how big is the sea bay anemone, Johnny asks? The sea bay is probably that big around, whatever that is. 16 inches in diameter, maybe larger. It's hard to tell because it gets large and then it shrinks down, and I'm looking down from above. It's quite the beast. Yes, Brian, I'll be at that Tulsa show. Jeeping Reefer says it sounds like you're busy with you're extra busy right now. Will there be any delays with web store orders? It just depends on what you're ordering. If you're ordering something custom made from acrylic, there's going to be some time. I'm going to be working for the next couple of weeks just knocking out stuff as fast as I humanly can. And there's always new orders coming in, and that always creates a queue. People waiting in line for me to build their stuff. And no one is more irritated with the wait period more than I am. I constantly want your orders out as quickly as possible, and I want everyone to be happy and not be upset with me. And right now I've got probably 15 or 20 orders on the table. So that is where I'm at right now. Why don't you have a clam, Robert asks. I'm a huge Maxima fan, and every store I go to tends to not have Maximas, and I really like aqua blue. And so if they have some other color, I usually kind of like, it's nice, and I keep walking. So I'm kind of in the market again. I'm thinking I'd like to get some acans And I Lords, because I have that one over there, which is Necanata. I'll show that to you guys. Switch this camera real quick. So this one right here is an Acan Echinata. And why is it being so washed out? You would think my tank is like on fire with light. It's not that bright. Anyway, this is a really pretty coral under blue lighting. All those oranges just pop like crazy. It's orange and green. And I've had that for several years. I've even given away frags of that sheared off on their own. And let's see. I've got another one in the front of the anemone cube that I'd like to move. Maybe if I move that other one, I don't know, near that one, let those two guys fight each other, I can put all the rock anemones in the front. That would be awesome, because that way I could really appreciate those. But yeah, if I found a clam I really liked, I'd buy it. But I don't want a gigas, and I don't like wrasse, I don't like crocea. I'm a Maxima guy. All right, let's see. Is a sea cucumber dangerous if they die in your tank? Kevin, anything that dies in your tank could be a toxicity issue depending on the size of the aquarium. I've had cucumbers in tanks as small as 29 gallons with no fears, no surprises. So I would say that it's nothing to fear. If it gets into a power head, that could be a problem. But I found cucumbers inside my plumbing when I was taking the plumbing apart, and they were living in the pipes. It was really small, wasn't getting much food, but it was still alive, and I threw it in my refugium so we could get some snacks down there. Someone was talking about my purple tang. The purple tang I've had since 2004. Alan asks about my thoughts on the Kessel Refugium light. If you're talking about the one that's hot pink, I hate it. I just don't like the color. I don't care who makes it. I don't care if it was Reef Bright. If it's pink, I don't like it. So when I look outside, the sun is white, and our plants that grow outside grow perfectly under it, and the red light just drives me bonkers. I'm sorry. That's just my personal opinion, or pet peeve, or whatever you want to call it. Let's see. Ed has mentioned, please subscribe to my channel if you have not subscribed yet, and please shop at my shop, because that helps pay the bills. And if you can get out of the chat itself and get to this live stream video, you can hit the thumbs up. And then as soon as you're done hitting thumbs up, come back to the chat. A lot of times people will thumbs up in the chat, and that is, it doesn't do anything for the video. Highlander asks, where do I post my tank readings? They usually start on Instagram and migrate over to Facebook. And so you could either find it on my Facebook page, which is right here, or you might find it inside of, let's see if these overlap. I don't know if they will or won't. Inside Club Mila's Reef. So those two areas are where you're going to see my parameters that I post up. And I also look to see your posts and comment on your parameters as well. And we're always here to help each other. Oh, let me talk about that for a second. The main reason for Club Mila's Reef was to help hobbyists be more successful with their tanks. And so I'm just doing this as a reminder. I think you guys already know it, but there's always new people that are just coming in and they've never heard of me or seen my stuff before. We made the group to help you be successful. And when you ask questions, we're not here to berate you or to put you down or to say that's been asked before. If you have a question, ask it. If others are able to answer it, they will. If they've seen it before, they're not going to get upset. They're going to keep scrolling to some other question. That is the whole point of the group, and we are not going to make anyone feel unwelcome. Remember, the only rule of the group is to treat others with kindness, and if you don't, then you're out, and there's no coming back. So, one time. All right. Dennis tells me that there's a beautiful Maxima over at Fish Tomorrow for, that's available now. It's about 6 inches in size, which would be great for this size tank because you need to be able to see it when you're standing back. George, hello. Kanisha says, is it best to add pods to your tank right after the cycle before you add the fish and corals, or after? Your tank is young and new. I don't really see the point of putting in pods that early on. I think just get started with a few fish, get you started with a few corals, and then in a few months, add some pods late at night when the tank is asleep, so that way they can migrate into the rock work and into the sand and that way any that are caught out in the open, the fish can eat later. But I don't think I put them in now. Again, my concern is that a lot of you guys are setting up tanks with dry sand and dry rock, and it's so pristine that the stuff has nothing to eat. It just doesn't have anything to live off of. And I need your tank to get a little bit mature and a little bit dirty and give it some stuff for the critters to snack on. And then once you've done that, I think that you'll have more of a success rate with keeping that stuff alive. George asks, what's a good way to carbon dose other than no-pox? I seem to be getting dinos. Whew, you are dealing with all kinds of problems. It could be that the carbon dosing is leading into extra issues in your tank. So I guess my question is going to point to what are your nitrates and what are your phosphates now? Because maybe those guys are out of balance. What salt do I use and why? That's a great question. I've got Aqua Vitro in the workshop. You know, I've got this huge barrel, so it's sort of like a place for me to put things down. But I don't do water changes, so it lasts forever. But I mixed up a huge batch of salt water recently with a totally different brand called Royal Nature. And I've already used up 5 or 6 gallons of that water so far. I've still got like 243 gallons to go. I'm going to be using it on both tanks and see how the tank responds. And I sent off a sample to ICP. You know, I'm kind of curious if my results are in. Wouldn't it be cool to show the results on the live stream? It's 3:14. Our live stream is done. Too late. Sorry, guys. Can't show you the results. Let me see if I can figure out how to get to ICP. I have no idea. I did that stuff like a week and a half ago, and I forgot all about it. Let me do a search. Why is it 3:15 already? I've been at this for an hour. There's my ICP analysis. Logging in. Awaiting test results. Awaiting test results. Awaiting test results. Ah, it's not ready yet. Oh well, haha, I'm off the hook. So I am looking for, wow, there's 224 people on the live stream this week. Thank you guys for tuning in. Clearly, Tidal Gardens is not doing a live stream today. But when I do get my ICP results in, I'm definitely going to share them with the world. I've been very curious to know what my water measurements are after all this time without changing water and letting everything just ferment within itself. Okay, I'm back to George and his dinos versus no-pox versus his stuff. You say your nitrates are 0.25. So less than 1 ppm, and your phosphates are 0.08, which is fine. Your nitrates sound crazy low. You're going to need some more nitrate in your tank. And that is because otherwise, with a lack of those, you could literally develop a dinoflagellate problem, and you do not want that in your tank. Okay, I skipped something. Best return pump for a basement sump. Well, if you got a lot of money, the Abyss pump will do that job perfectly. But no, I know that's crazy. That's a lot of money. I mean, if you want it, buy it. The Abyss pump is an awesome pump, and it has a 10-year warranty, which is amazing. It's the return pump I've got on my tank right now. But you could use the Vectra pump. It can definitely handle that head pressure. I don't know enough about the core pumps from Neptune Systems to say if they can handle that. I'm going to assume they can, but I don't know. You're going to have to look up pumps. One of the pumps that I've used in the past was the Sequence Dart, and that one definitely can handle head pressure from a basement. But see, I live in Texas where everything's on the same floor. We have no basements, and so I haven't had a lot of need to even delve into that topic because I don't have to deal with it. Sorry. Let's see. Enzo says, is it normal when the blue lights come on to have hundreds of tiny white snails pop up out there about the size of a pinhead? Yes, and they're going to be out all night long. They're going all up your glass, and they're going to be all over your rock work. They might even be climbing up the side of corals. They're colonista snails. They're about the size of a, well, you said a pinhead. I like to say the size of a BB or smaller. Super adorable, do no harm at all, have nothing to fear. And then they disappear into the rock work during the daytime because wrasses will eat them because they are tasty little morsels and their shells are super soft. So if you are hoping to keep them, maybe don't get too many wrasses for your tank. Greg says a reef tank. Well, you know what? Shove this on the broadcast. A reef tank timeline would be cool, as you were talking about when to add pods, when to introduce things. I actually did something sort of like that about setting up a new tank, and everyone loved it, and they all told me to pin it. And it was a one time I typed something, I made a screenshot, I shared it to the group, and it's gone. But yeah, that's a good idea, because I do think that if people had just a bullet point timeline, it could really help them just have a quick cursory overview, because there's so much to learn in this hobby. Thank you. I'm going to somehow remember that one. Let me copy and paste that somewhere so I don't forget, because that, oh, come on, cooperate. No, that'd be too easy, right? Yeah, it won't let me. All right, Andrea or Eric, if you saw this one, I want this post saved somewhere, please. All right, I'm going to take that off the screen again. Gary asks, any info on the blue box from Fritz? Well, I've used it in the past, and it's a lower alkalinity salt, and then the red box is the higher alkalinity salt. If it was me, I would use red. And it was funny, because when I was at Reefworks, they walked away from their booth, so I stood in there like I was selling it. And a guy came up and says, which salt should I use? And I said, what's your alkalinity? And he told me, I don't know. And I said, well, the first thing you need to do is go buy an alkalinity test kit. And right then, Sean came up, and he's like, what are you saying? Stop. You know, I was like, you're asking which salt to use, and you don't know your alkalinity. You need an alkalinity test kit. And he was laughing. He was making fun of me later at the bar. He goes, man, Mark is so direct. I'm like, I'm not being direct. That's an honest answer. Because if you're keeping your alkalinity at like 10 or 11, you're going to want a salt mix that mixes up around that number. And if it's at a lower number, you're probably going to want a salt mix that mixes lower. Or maybe you want the higher one because you're not dosing, which means that every single time that you are doing a water change, you're adding some alkalinity to the tank to help replenish what's been consumed. So yeah, I think the red box is the one to buy. But there are people out there where they're very low nutrients that want their very low alkalinity. And me, I guess I like the higher numbers. I always like higher numbers. All right. Wire Ninja asks, thoughts about a sea lettuce in the refugium? I guess my question is, why would you do that? I mean, seriously, what do you not want growing in your refugium that you need to put a sea lettuce in there? And you're talking about a lettuce nudibranch, I'm sure. What could I dose nitrates to bring them up? Well, there's a couple of products on the market. One thing is actually called nitrate. It's from Elos. It's in a bottle, and you can pour that into your tank, you know, a certain amount as based on your tank size to raise them up. Something that people are using just from the hardware store is tree stump remover. So if you Google tree stump remover, you'll find out what that stuff is. It'll probably take you to a thread on Reef to Reef, and you can learn the recipe there. And that will help you get the nitrates up a little bit higher in your tank. Corals like a nitrate of around 2, 3, 4, 5, somewhere in there. And 20 and higher is, you know, considered not so good. And my tank is way higher than that, and it's not so good. But my corals are used to it. I see guys talking about fish tomorrow. That is a fish store in my area. And there's another couple new stores that just happened. Matter of fact, if you have the Reef Trace app I talked about, and you open it up to the LFS page, it will show you all the stores in the area because it gets updated by the guys at Reef Trace. So we'll go here really quick. We'll go to LFS. And so right there, it's showing some of the stores right near my blue dot. And then as I move my blue dot to the other side of town, let's do this. Move it over here. Then it'll show me the stores over there. And I can move my blue dot again over here. And let's see what stores are there. And I can take my blue dot and I get in. I love that it has the ability to do that. And then I can find out what the store is, Mid-Cities Aquariums. So that's a super handy way to look things up. Wherever you are in the US, it looks around a 45-mile radius of where you are. All right. What kind of cleanup crew can get rid of bubble algae? I've never had any luck with emerald crabs. Well, All right, then maybe let's not look at crabs. You could scrape it off. You could be the cleanup crew. You could get a Nassau tang. You could get a fox face. They both eat Valonia. You might have luck with a purple tang, but purple tangs can be semi-aggressive. Ryan asked me to holla at him because he's in South Africa. Hello there. Where's Brazil? There's no Brazil today. Crazy. Heinrich asks, do you know anything about blue treasure salt? That one I've not heard of. I guess that must be something over in Europe. Everyone's liking the timeline idea. Connor, the reason you caught the live stream is because I haven't ended it. Click Clacks Reef says, took your word or your advice on taking care of the cyano problem, and it's all gone. He's happy, and he's really glad, and he wished he'd done it sooner. I'm re-paraphrasing your sentence. Let's see. We're at the point where it's all slowing down. What is the minimum stages for an RODI to remove chloramines from city water? Adam, chloramines are a combination of chlorine and ammonia, and they are bonded together. They're locked together. And when you have okay, so let me make this really simple. Chloramines will pass through an entire RODI system completely. They will go in one side and come out the other, and nothing stops them because they're together. So the solution to eradicating chloramines is going to be 20 minutes of contact time with 20 inches of carbon. So an RODI system that has two 10-inch carbons, that's the 20 inches of carbon, and a 75-gallon-a-day membrane, which is 3 gallons an hour, means you'll have 1 hour, or you'll have 20 minutes for the 1 gallon, because 3 gallons an hour divided by 3 is 20 minutes. So that gives you 20 minutes contact time, 20 inches of carbon. What that does, it doesn't remove the chloramine, it breaks apart that bond, so the ammonia and the chlorine are separated, and now the system can trap it and remove it. So that is the solution. That being said, I see a lot of people talking about chloramines, and I never hear anything about their tanks suffering, specifically point blank by chloramines. And I think part of the reason is because we don't have a chloramine test kit. We are not measuring for chloramines, unfortunately, so we are basically just dealing with a fear rather than a fact. Like, when you have dinos, we all know you have dinos, and you show pictures and video, and we're like, oh my god, those dinos are horrible. But when you say, oh my god, I have chloramines, we're just like, where? Show me. And you're like, well, I heard it's in my city's water report. I'm like, well, there's a lot of things in the city's water report we don't talk about. Myself, I live in Fort Worth. We have chloramines here, and I'm running a regular RODI system. I don't have any special filters in there. It's the same ones I sell in my shop, 20 inches of carbon. I'm running a little bit quicker, 15 minutes per gallon on my system, and I've had no surprises. I have no weird stuff going on in my tank that I can't explain. So I would say it's probably pulling out what it needs to pull out or breaking them down. It's not guaranteed, but I'm not having a problem. The simplest, easiest, most inexpensive solution is going to be to use Prime by Seachem. It says right on the bottle that locks up ammonia, nitrate, nitrite, chlorine, chloramine. It's magical. And you just take a capful per 50 gallons. So you can make your RODI water, whatever that container worth is. Let's say it's a 50-gallon barrel. You put 1 capful and stir it up, and you're done. And that's kind of what I recommend. But there are filters, like Bulk Resupply sells something called chloramine buster, and you could go that route, but I've personally not seen the need, and I sell a lot of RODI systems. I see someone trying to promote Brazil and Israel. All right, we got some good countries in here today. Any idea or any thoughts on ditching a refugium for a chaetomorpha reactor? No, but if you had no room for a refugium, I could see you adding one just for the benefit. And I would love to, again, I'd like someone to be able to tell me repeatedly how the reactor worked month after month after month. It seems like a lot of people set one up, and it works great the first month, and it kind of just seems to just dwindle off. I don't know why. And for the ones that are able to make it work month after month, I'd like to know what's different about their system. It's just one of those things I can't really put my finger on yet. Corey. So Corey is buying one of my old sumps. And he just asked me, how old do I think that sump is that he's getting for $40? That is a very old sump. I'm going to guesstimate it's probably 10 years old. And if it holds water, that's great. And it could be cleaned. It could look a lot better. It's very old. I remember building that sump because the guy wanted to run an external return pump, which it was being sold with, that passed through the refugium to get the water from the middle of the sump because it's a Model F. And yeah, it's really old. So, I mean, wow, my seams last forever, guys. It's a heck of a deal. It's just really old. I teased you on Facebook and I said, you know, the line from Indiana Jones, "It belongs in a museum." So that's funny. Legout asks, is the Reef Trace app still under active development? Constantly working on it, constantly getting updates. New stuff is rolling out. The last couple of months, the rollouts have been beautiful. They've been focused on the iOS side, and now they're focusing on the Android side as well. So if you're reading anything about crashes or losing data, I don't know about losing data because it's cloud-based. It cannot lose it. I bet it's user error that they don't understand how to get to their data, because there's a little quirk about this app. There's a thing called compare, and when you look at your parameters, you have to pick which parameter you want to look at and set the date, like the beginning date and the end date. And if you do not correctly enter those dates, it'll appear like you have no data. And yet all the data is in the cloud, and as soon as you fix the dates, boom, you have all your data. And I think the ones that have mentioned it or complained never did an update saying, oh yeah, I found it, oops. Because I've been entering data in there for years. And I'm just like you guys, I'm a user. And I've not had any weird surprises or lost anything because everything's backed up. So it's, yeah, definitely great. Mujuf, M-U-J-U-F, asks any thoughts on Triton. Triton is, we've been kind of immersed with that for the last couple of years here in the US, maybe longer, maybe 3 years, since it got really more obvious. And a lot of people are adopting it. A lot of people are building sumps to mimic the Triton method. I don't need that method on my tank, but in a way I kind of employ it because no water changes and I have a really large refugium. But I'm not using their products and I'm not having them test my water to tell me what to add. I basically just do my Prodivio every 15 days and make sure I top off regularly. Michael says, everyone says use RODI water. How does the TDS of tap water affect the livestock? Well, the RODI water takes out all the TDS. And getting the TDS out of your system is what we want. We want to have a tank that is got the most pure water we can start with to avoid issues. And tap water can have anything in it at any given time, and it could be seasonal. It could go up and down in all kinds of different additives the city's putting in there to make it human safe. And so we don't use tap water. And using an RODI filter strips out all that garbage so that no matter what's coming out of the pipes, we know the end result is going to be nice, clean water. And a lot of people that don't make their own water at home, they go buy the water at the fish store, and the fish store is doing the exact same thing. They're filtering the water, and then they sell it to you in jugs. If I use new sand to switch over my 75-gallon, will it shock my reef? Absolutely not, because sand can't do anything. It is just sand. That's like saying I put I don't know what to say. I can't think of a thing to compare it to. I was going to say brick, but brick could have weird things in it. But no, it's just sand. You just put it in. It doesn't shock anything. It is the substrate of your aquarium. Keith Knight asked the question, with an all-in-one system that has a media rack and he's got floss and ChemiPure, what could he put on the third shelf? What do you guys recommend? I'm a carbon guy when it comes to that type of filtration. I don't know what else I'd put in there. If you're using ChemiPure, you kind of hit all the other things, so I guess that's it. I think the third rack will be empty. Kanisha says, can I put seahorses in my reef tank with other fish? Or should they be in a tank by themselves? Are they even worth buying? Seahorses are awesome, but they like low flow. They like tall tanks, and they are not fast eaters. So if you're in a tank full of a bunch of active fish, they could starve to death. Also, our reef tanks tend to have a higher water temperature, where seahorses like cooler water. They like less bright light. Matter of fact, a seahorse tank would be a good tank for black sand because the light bouncing off the white hurts their eyes, and so to have a darker substrate is beneficial to the seahorse. So it might be a better choice would be to do it as a species-only tank and have a tank full of seahorses that you can take care of, and maybe some cool corals in the bottom for fun. But like corals you'd feed a lot, like sun corals, dendros, things like that. But you also have to keep in mind, whatever coral you put in the tank, could it hurt the seahorse? Could the seahorse grab onto this coral and the coral sting it and harm its tail and cause tail rot? So you want to be careful about that and not do anything to harm your seahorses. So, I mean, seahorses, I've seen them in a few reef tanks, and it's really cool. But the ones that keep those guys alive long term in there are really, they're doing some serious husbandry to make sure that animal is being fed. Jermaine has an opinion. I'll share this real quick. Those that run a Ketomorpha reactor, they don't have success after the first month because it apparently stripped out all the iron. And so by dosing more iron into your system, that will help. That's interesting. And he says that Brightwell sells a brand of it that you can use called Ferrion Iron. Thank you. All right, guys. We've been at it for a little less than an hour and a half. I think we should wrap it up here. I really appreciate you guys tuning in today. And we will have one more live stream next week. In the meantime, if you guys want to find me, be sure you find me on Club Mila's Reef. You can also find me on Instagram. On Instagram, it's just instagram.com/MilavsReef, just like everywhere else. And you'll find the news about the Bonaire trip on there, which I'm hoping will be an awesome idea. I mean, I don't know. You guys have to decide if you like it. And in other news, that is about it for now. I'm just going to focus on customers. I want to make sure I'm taking care of them. I've got a couple that have been waiting too long, and I've got, I'm sure more customers will come in from this weekend, and I appreciate all the business you throw my way because it lets me keep doing what I'm doing. Thank you very much. Test your water today. Post your results. If you're going to use Instagram, it's going to be hashtag post your results, hashtag water testing, and at @MeLovesReef so I can see your results. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you guys in a week. Bye.